morning, everybody. Let's just call this meeting to order. Bill is online, so we're good.
Yes,
Thank you, Bill. Why don't we do roll call?
Vasconcelos,
here via Zoom.
Boesiger,
Here.
Carlson,
Here.
Cunningham, absent. Donaldin, absent. Nancolis, absent. Westergaard.
Here.
We have 4 members present. We have a quorum.
Great. All right, so the first, Bill's online. He's asked me to run the meeting today, so forgive me if I do anything wrong. We've got an approval of the minutes from the meeting from March 1st. I guess we need a motion to approve that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the minutes from the Airport Commission meeting of March 1.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I,
Thank you, Bill. Motion carries. Rebecca.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Bill, thank you for being here via Zoom. We really appreciate it. Recognizing that you are on vacation and in a very different time zone, and it's very early for you this morning. So thank you for being here.
thank you.
We will go ahead and run through the director's report. And this looks fine on your screen. So for March, we did have a few runway closures. They were all routine maintenance performed on the 1st, the 11th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And I can't see part of my screen because of the way the bar is here. Okay. And then also on the 4th, 7th, 14th, I won't read them all to you, but it was all routine maintenance that we do, normal lighting repairs, pavement sweeping. We did do a joint closure with FAA Tech Ops for routine maintenance as well. Not, there we go. Parking garage construction continues. We have reached an exciting point where we have reached the highest point. The topping off parties, we're at level 5. The columns will continue to be formed. We have the construction of the vehicle ramp. The north surface parking lot has been paved and marked. Back in service in time for spring break. The employee garage continues to take shape, and we're working on the 2nd level of the elevator stair tower. And again, columns are being poured and the deck continues to be formed. You can see those very clearly as you approach the airport. And spring break, we don't have official numbers yet, but we do think that we broke spring break travel records. Schools were actually out over a 2-week period, and we had traditional parking options that were more than adequate, in part because we added valet last year, 260 spaces for valet. We added 340 spaces in the economy lot, and then we also expanded the surface lot, made that north lot by the garage available. So we were pretty close to capacity, but we didn't quite make it there. We had a little bit more breathing room this year than we did last year, so we felt pretty good about that. Also, this last month, I did have an opportunity to travel to DC and meet with our congressional delegation. FAA reauthorization is supposed to happen this year. Congress is supposed to enact a new FAA authorization. Some of the things that we're asking for is an increase on the cap for the passenger facility charge, which hasn't been increased in over 20 years. We're also asking that when airports transition from the small hub to the medium hub, that they rework the formula so we don't lose 75% of our funding overnight. We highlighted that if there are any heightened security requirements, such as employee screening, that those should be done by TSA, and the importance of continuing that TSA funding for the law enforcement officer program and also for the K-9 program. And then we've talked about PFAS, which is a chemical that EPA has determined is a hazardous chemical that's in our firefighting foam, that there be a good transition plan and a manageable transition plan should they come out with a new firefighting foam. So I would say our delegation was receptive. I would not say that my peers are optimistic that we will get a reauthorization bill this year. That remains to be seen, but it could be helpful. Also wanted to share with the commission that we're going to start a new process of surveying passengers. It's called the Air Service Quality Departures Survey. It's actually organized by Airports Council International. It will enable us to gauge passenger satisfaction and identify areas for opportunity and areas of success, and we can benchmark our score against other airports. So that will be important feedback for us to have. We will have a full report for you on that. It'll probably be October when we get that information.
Madam Chair. Rebecca, how is the survey being implemented?
That is a question for Sean that I don't know the answer to, but luckily Sean is here.
Morning. So the survey will be handled by a third party that will have iPads and they will go through the terminal. They're required to survey in certain gatehold areas. So we get a good survey sample across all airlines, different types of passengers, different types of day. And they hand the iPad to the passenger instead of giving them a face-to-face survey. The passenger will complete it on their own.
Madam Chair, Rebecca, Sean, do you have anything on there on why they were visiting?
That is not part of the survey. So this specific survey has very set questions that we don't have the ability to change. And that allows us to compare ourselves with our peer airports across the US and even the world.
Thank you, Sean. I knew he would know. All right, we do have an environmental assessment update that we're working on for the 10 right, the RIM assessment. We had tentatively planned a public open house for April, and I just wanted to get back to commission, let them know that we have changed that due to coordination issues with the FAA. That project is still moving forward, but the public hearing, we don't have a date set. So I just wanted to make sure that commission was aware of that. And then as part of our organization assessment, we have been adding key staff members. Alex Viduck will be one of our new project managers. He'll be working with Matt's team on all of the capital improvement programs that we're working on here. So I don't see Alex here. February employments continue to be up. They were up 15% compared to 2022 and 11% over 2020. Remember, February 2020 was just before we were heading into the pandemic, and so that was our previous record. So passenger travel does continue to be strong and exceed previous travel levels. So that pushes us up 11% over 2020 and 20% over 22 year to date. Again, as I indicated, we don't have the official numbers for March because March just ended a couple of days ago, but preliminary reports based on the TSA throughput traffic through the checkpoint indicates that March will also be a strong month, but we'll see those numbers next month.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Rebecca, I just personally have noticed, we were trying to look at some vacations and airfare seems to have gone up fairly significantly. Obviously, I don't know, it doesn't seem to appear to have affected the employments at this stage. Do you hear any comments, or is that something that you have any concerns about, but they are going up?
I think that's the question that everyone is asking themselves in this environment where we're seeing inflation, where the cost of everything is going up. Labor is scarce, pilots are scarce, aircraft are scarce, yet people are still purchasing airfare. And that's the question, is how long will this trend continue? Will it continue? Remarks from the airline CEOs would lead you to believe that they expect that traffic will continue to be strong. There's, God forbid, a recession, and I think that that could change things. But at this point, the indications are that airfares will remain high because the system is constrained. And I don't know if anyone saw this, but even just this past week, the JetBlue came out and said they were reducing 10% of their flights out of New York because of air traffic control issues. So there are all sorts of factors that are going into reduced schedule, reduced capacity, reduced frequency. And when you have reduced supply, you're going to have increased price. So that's the way that it looks for the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
I almost skipped over our operating revenue. You can see there are a couple of significant changes. One is that we have an increase in rental car concession. This larger increase is due to the COVID relief credit that we provided. That was part of the federal relief program. The signatory airline fees have also increased. That's a result of renegotiating our airline use and lease agreement. And then terminal concessions, as you would expect, food and beverage continues to be strong, as well as news and gift continues to be strong as we see strong passenger numbers. And also just people buying more things as they are traveling through the airport. And when we look at expenses, there are some changes there. In the personnel side, the increase is due to, obviously, we are adding personnel to accomplish the significant infrastructure projects that we're doing, but also managing the day-to-day. Parking management, again, these fees are related to credit cards and the increase in credit card transactions as we have more passengers using the facility and also increased shuttle operations. Those things all cost money. The routine maintenance structural, actually, excuse me, easy for me to say, routine maintenance, structural, engineering, and plumbing. These expenses are up this fiscal year as the airport's working to replace our natural gas heaters with electric, and we're replacing some countertops in Concourse B, as well as some one-time repairs in airfield maintenance and in our aircraft rescue and firefighting stations. The power, that increase is due to a slight increase in electrical costs, as well as the airport adding new properties to our overall bills. And then in minor equipment, there's a large increase, and it's due to us purchasing some new radio equipment for our alert system, and then some new motors for our baggage handling system. So there are a few things there, but nothing that would seem unusual or out of the ordinary to me. So with that, that concludes my report.
Rebecca. We're on to commissioners' comments. Welcome, Mayor Nancolis. Thank you for coming. You want to start?
Sure, and I apologize, some days the interstate cooperates and some days it just doesn't. I brought my little granddaughter off at 7:30 this morning and thought I had plenty of time, and I was wrong. Nothing, I just want to again congratulate, Rebecca and staff with all the work that's being done here, all the construction. I mean, it cannot be easy to navigate on a day-to-day basis. So congratulations to all of you for keeping things flowing so smoothly.
I'm looking
other
for
than that-
Matt, because he's the one who really spearheads it, Matt and his team, but he's
Well,
working.
Thank you to anybody that is involved in that. And then just wish everybody a very, very wonderful Easter. And I apologize again for being late, Matt.
Well, I wanted to say tonight we have our Recognition of Service Excellence Awards. And last year, Rebecca Hupp was our Spirit of Hospitality recipient. We've also had John Cunningham, who's a commissioner, as a recipient. And this year we have Dan Prinzing from the Wasmus Center being honored. But we also have an airport, well, I would say Parody's Lagadier employee, Sandra Allen, for the retail category. And so she's one of the finalists. And so we still probably have some availability if anybody is not already coming, but really excited to honor all the hospitality tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My trip in March was to Orange County for the Natural Products Expo West Show. It's the largest convention for food, beverage, and supplements in the United States. Happens every year in March. Usually it's 80 degrees. This year it's 50 degrees and raining. As you know, Southern California has had a lot of rain this year, which they need desperately. The show was very successful. More than 60,000 people attend. It's not a consumer show. It's a B2B show with brands, meeting with retail and food service, restaurant executives, trying to just determine who's going to pick up their products. So it was a very successful show. It had a different energy this year, and I think it's just that the food and beverage industry, like many industries, is sort of fully come out of its cocoon. And a lot of people were just really ready, fully engaged, want to do business together. It was a real positive buzz. So that was wonderful. and uneventful flying in and out. So always great to come back to our airport.
That's nice. I don't have much. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all pilots that I'm ready for this weather to turn warm and sunny. It was nice to see the sun this morning and the moon set. I don't know if anybody was up this morning to see it. It was pretty awesome. So looking forward to more sunshine. Okay, moving on. Oh yeah, Bill, thanks. Sorry.
Good morning. So we flew out of Boise to through Oakland on Southwest and directly to the Big Island. And that's where we are right now. So we had a nice family vacation. And then my wife and I are going to stay for a few extra days. And hopefully it'll be a smooth ride back. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Enjoy your vacation. We're all jealous.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. I think we have Sean now. Sean, do you want to write your own
That
slides?
would be awesome. Well, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The airport recently had a couple studies that we updated. The first one was our air service market assessment, and that takes a look at industry trends, the trends we're seeing in Boise, and also it helps give us an idea of target markets as we move forward to try to get a better strategy as we move forward with air service development over the next 10 years. The second study was a new forecast. If you guys recall, the forecast we did during our master plan study, we kind of blew those passenger numbers out of the water. And so we worked with consulting firm Alabama Pacific to update that forecast. These two studies are about 200 slides long, and because I'm a nice guy, I won't make you sit through all of that. But if any of you are interested in the full study, I'm happy to send it over. So a quick look at the state of the industry. It's a unique time post-pandemic. There are labor shortages, as Rebecca mentioned, and it's not just pilots, it's mechanics, it is ground staff. And that is causing an issue in airlines being able to operate as much as they would like to. Fuel costs have increased significantly. They are starting to decline, and we expect them to continue to decline into the fall. But all that is driving record revenue because there is so much demand and just not enough supply that the airlines are actually doing extremely well in this moment. So when we look at the pilot shortage, the current shortage today is about 6,000 pilots, which is almost equivalent to exactly what we saw in early retirements through the pandemic. And that's about 500 aircraft flying that just simply can't operate due to that shortage. Scott Kirby from United said that each year they typically get about 5,000 to 7,000 pilots into the system. This year they're trying to hire 13,000. And so simply there are not enough pilots in the funnel to accommodate that demand. And so it will be a rapid growth of where they need to recruit additional pilots over the coming years to get back to where they need to be to accommodate the passenger demand we have throughout the country. So along with those, they're also navigating other challenges, fleet challenges initially. Airlines are trying to order new aircraft, but supply chain shortages have caused a delay in the production line. And so those new aircraft are delayed. So the airlines that can accommodate the new planes, they're simply not receiving them in the timely manner that they'd like to.
Yeah, I'm sure, Sean. I apologize. And maybe I should know this, but I don't. If I was 20 years old today and decided I wanted to become a commercial airline pilot, how long does it take to get through the process? In other words, if they're looking at hiring 13,000, I mean, how far away time-wise are they even having people in the, in the pipeline that can even enter that job field?
And I'm going to punt that to Rebecca.
Oh, okay.
I think she.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna punt that to Commission Chair.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
I didn't have an answer, but I think she probably would answer better.
How long does it take? It comes full circle. Yeah, so there's a couple of different avenues that pilots can take to become a professional pilot. But at a minimum, if you're not trained by the military, it's a couple of years. There's a minimum number of flight hours that are required for the airlines to hire you. And so it just takes time. A lot of people go through they're training and they pay for it themselves, and they become a flight instructor, and then they build hours teaching. And you can only fly 8 hours a day as a paid pilot. So you need at least 1,200 hours total time.
Oh, wow.
So it's 2 to 3 years if you're working hard.
Yeah, so that makes that number even more overwhelming, right? So, thank you, Madam. I didn't know that you had that knowledge, or I would have just asked you. I
No worries.
The next item, as Rebecca alluded to, is air traffic control issues. At JFK, recent article said that their control tower is only staffed at 51%. And so there are staffing issues throughout the FAA and control towers across the US as well. We have aging infrastructure in the airport. And then we all know what happened in terms of technology around the holidays with a certain airline last Christmas time. So they definitely need modernization of their technology to keep up with this growing population, growing demand on air travel. So this is just a look at the different aircraft and how they have returned by size. As you can see, mainline aircraft, so our larger ones, have almost fully recovered since the pandemic. Those small aircraft, the 50-seaters, they've only recovered 40%, and that probably will never fully recover. The industry is moving away from those smaller aircraft. And then the large RJs, a lot of what we see here, the E175s, those have recovered about 80%. And that'll be an important piece of the fleet moving forward as well. We expect to see that continue to recover. So as I mentioned, airline revenue is up across the board with the increased demand and the limited availability to serve that demand. That's why we're seeing higher fares, and it turns into higher revenue for the airlines. So what we're seeing in Boise, we're really seeing everything that follows those trends here in Boise as well. As you can see, over the past 15 years, our seat capacity is up 14%, but the total daily flights is actually down 1 flight per day. And that's because aircraft are just continuing to upgauge. And you can see the trend line over the 15 years, where we used to be at 90 seats, all the way up to 105 seats is our average aircraft capacity. The predominant aircraft in Boise is the 737. So with seats up 14%, our demand is still well outpacing that. Demand has grown 36%, which has resulted in higher fares, but also on the positive news, it's been higher load factors as well. And so we've seen the load factor increase from 72% up to 83%. And we expect to see that load factor continue to trend up and do well in Boise.
Sure.
Sean, is there a natural sort of max out? I'm sure we don't go to 100% load factor. So
Yeah. I mean, if you're at 100% load factor, then you are completely undersupplied in your market. The goal is to be above 80% load factor. That's typically where it's really revenue profitable for the airline. The Atlanta flight is the best performing route in our network, and that sits at 91% load factor. And so when we take a look at where seats are that we currently have, the capacity versus the demand, you can see that the West and the Mountain is served extremely well. We have more seats available compared to the percentage of passengers that are flying in those regions. Where we really need to focus is that Northeast and the Southeast, where we can see we have obviously no service in the Northeast right now, 4% of passengers. In the Southeast, we have 3% of our seats going there, but 11% of passengers have that demand. And that's based on the origination destination data. So that's really the area in our network we need to grow to accommodate the demand and passenger traffic we have in Boise. And this is just a quick look at our top 50 domestic markets for origination destination traffic. Out of our top 25 markets, we have nonstop service to 20 of those, which is extremely positive. But the areas in those top 25 is Orlando, DC, New York, Ontario, and Anchorage. And so those are good target markets for us as we move forward. And Honolulu's in there, Bill. So that's number 26. We'll work on getting that. So for the updated forecast, Avalon Pacific looked at 3 scenarios: a low scenario, a base scenario, and a high scenario. Historically, Boise has been in that base to high scenario in terms of our passenger traffic growth. And they looked at different market assumptions, everything from growth in our market to how aircraft will upgauge and how that demand will increase and how load factor will increase on those aircraft. So you can see the growth rates on here, with low being 1.7% and the high being 4.7%, the compound annual growth rate. For 25 and 27, the consultant made assumptions on potential new service that the airport would have based upon the market study that they completed as well. And so when we look at the enplanement forecast over the next 5 years, 2023 is the same across the board, simply because they utilize the total seats we have in the market that are scheduled for this year. But it has us growing up to, on the high scenario, up to 3.5 million enplanements, in the low scenario, 2.8 million enplanements. And just to put that in perspective, we did 2.25 in 2022, that record year. So we expect to see growth at those rates, and realistically, the base scenario is probably the best guidance as you look at that trend chart, that would be growing pretty much in comparison with the way we've looked over the past few years. This just shows the full summary, everything from seats, the total flights in the market, the gauge of aircraft, and the load factor, and then obviously the enplanements. So you can see in the different scenarios, the load factor in the base scenario increases up to 86% average in 2027, and in the high scenario, 86%. But it's just a granular look at how that changes year over year. So the market analysis, this is what we'll utilize to for our air service development initiatives, working with different airlines. This gives us an idea of markets that we should be looking at in the short term, and based upon where we have those gaps in our market for seat capacity and where our passengers fly, we believe Orlando, DC, Nashville, Orange County, and Provo are something that would certainly be in the short term. Medium term, so New York City, initially we were thinking short term, but with the difficulty they're having in the air traffic control towers, and from our conversation with the airlines, we moved that into a medium term category, but we certainly think that's an important route for us to gain back. And then also, as the long term goes on, Boston and Cancun in 7+ years. So how do we work with the airlines to recruit this air service? We attend annual conferences. I recently went to Routes in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, met with 11 airlines. It's like speed dating with the airlines. You get 20 minutes, you get to wow them and impress them as much as possible. But it's really just that starting point of having those conversations and then following up afterwards and having more in-depth conversations. We attend about 2 to 3 of these events a year, with Routes and Jumpstart being key ones. I'll go down to Las Vegas to meet with Allegiant. They have their own air service development conference in April. And so we'll have conversations with them. And then we try to do headquarter visits as well with incumbent airlines and prospective airlines. Rebecca and I spoke. One of the airlines we feel like we need to go make a visit to is Breeze, located in Utah, and have a conversation with them. They're interested in Boise. It's helpful that their main network planner grew up here. And so he understands the market and would love to see his aircraft in this market. And then we also have our air service incentive program, which helps us as we gain service. And the air service incentive program basically just provides assistance to the airlines, gives them a little bit of a guarantee when they come in the market that we're willing to support it. And we have different levels of incentives, up to $125,000 for cost abatement that goes towards landing fees and rent, and then marketing incentives up to $75,000 over the first 2 years. The different categories are for target markets, and those are our key markets that we definitely want to get service in. And then we also have just a standard new market that is served. So maybe a market that's not high on our origination destination list, but nevertheless, it's a new market. Burbank would be an example of that. Atlanta would be an example of a key market that we wanted to get those in target. So currently on our target list, we have Anchorage, Boston, Honolulu, interstate service in Idaho, New York City, and Orlando. those are the big markets we're going after. We're willing to offer a little bit more in incentives for those markets. Now, after seeing the study, we propose that we add a couple additional markets to that target list. And that would be airports in the DC area, as well as Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte is a great hub for American. It provides excellent connectivity up and down the East Coast and the Southeast. And so I would ask as an action item, if you guys would be willing to approve these additional target markets for our air service incentive plan.
Okay, sounds like that's an action for us. So I move to approve the action item that Sean just stated. So I need a motion.
So you need a motion.
I need a motion.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yes.
I would move that we approve the added target market additions of Charlotte, North Carolina and DC airports as Sean has recommended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. This is exciting.
And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in the 10-year plan, the base forecast rate, if I recall, was around 3% a year. And you're suggesting that it'll be 3.2% a year going forward. Just raising a yellow flag.
So
Raising a yellow flag because we've been here before. And if we had no COVID, we would have been in deep trouble in terms of the growth exceeding so rapidly. What, 3% seems like a very reasonable annual compound annual growth rate. So I just appreciate sort of the thought process if we've had those discussions, if you could share those with the commission.
Sean, do you want
what's
to
that?
take that? Or-
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
I share your concerns, Commissioner Carlson, and I would note that based on what we're seeing already, these forecasts would be perhaps outdated just because we're already seeing 10% growth year to date compared to our forecast of 4% year to date growth. That said, we can't continue to grow and outpace supply, which is the capacity constraints that our system is seeing. I think we also have to be real. We have to plan for both the best and the worst case scenarios. This is a forecast that guides us. I wouldn't say that it's the only piece of data that we have. And it could change dramatically. If we were to bring in a new carrier that adds hundreds of seats every day with daily service, if we were to add some of these, it would dramatically change the forecast. Likewise, if we were to lose a service, it would dramatically change the forecast. So it's a guiding forecast that we use to set our financials, that we try to have a plan, but our plan has to be flexible. And you're right. I mean, we did not forecast the year-over-year growth that we had seen leading up to the pandemic. So, and our community continues to grow. I don't know if anyone has seen the latest census data, but it said that the Treasure Valley is approaching 900,000 citizens when you include the Oregon counties. So it's an exciting time. And there's opportunity, there's also challenges, but I hear your concerns.
Chair, Sean, the growth of Atlanta is amazing. Do you have a take on why it's so high? Is it the time of day? Is that just it's been needed to have that East Coast connection? Would we see more of that?
I think it's been needed to have that East Coast connection. When that Atlanta service was added in the first year, it increased our origination destination traffic in the Atlanta area by 33% with one flight. And so I think it's something that we've needed for such a long time, but Atlanta also provides exceptional connectivity across the world as well. It's the largest airport in the world in terms of passenger traffic. So it just has great service.
Madam Chair, I thought it was because the Atlanta Braves have been doing so well.
Sean, there's a lot of new, even in the short term, let's say we get 4 airlines to say, yep, sign me up. Do we have that capacity to accept them all at once, or do we have a priority list? What's that timeline? How long does it take to bring a new route online?
So to bring a new route online, these conversations happen over a course of years. And we talk with airlines and say, you're part of our 5-year plan, which is kind of a nice way of saying no. But the conversations we have with these airlines have been continually happening over the 9 years I've been here, the 10 years, 11 years that Rebecca's been here. So it takes some time to bring them in. Once they decide they want to start service in Boise, it's typically a 6-month to 9-month lead process to bring them in, because obviously they want to sell tickets for that route. We do have space for additional airlines. We're also building 8 additional common use ticket counters, which would be really great for the Breezes of the world, Sun Country, Hawaiian, airlines that might only operate a couple days a week initially, so they could utilize that counter space. And then another airline could come in and utilize that counter space a different day or different time of the week. As we get busier and busier, we'll have to work with airlines regarding their schedule and the timing of new routes that come in to ensure that we have gate space available. But at this point, if a new airline wanted to enter, we'd have space for them to come into the market.
Madam Chair. Sean, tell me about Anchorage. Why isn't Alaska flying more routes?
Why are they not flying to
Yes, why
Anchorage?
are they not flying?
We
Anchorage?
ask them that question all the time. I mean, it is part of our top 25 nonstop destinations. Alaska does fly a lot of E-175 smaller aircraft, but they do operate 737 main lines to Seattle as well out of Boise. But it's something that we continue to talk to them about.
There isn't a response.
I don't have a specific
We don't know
reason.
why.
I think
I think the answer is, Sean, they don't want to overfly their Seattle hub.
Okay.
So, I mean, when you look
It's
at
their
that route,
preference.
they would prefer to fly you to Seattle and then have more passengers go that onward trip.
appreciate it.
Okay, I think we're moving on to the next phase of this meeting. We've got question and answers from the general public. So, questions, please come up to the podium. So, raise your, anybody online?
Madam Chair, I checked it. It appears to be only city employees and nobody with their hands.
Guys all just came to see our shiny faces. So I think that's about it. So I think, do we need a motion to adjourn? Okay. Can I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
See you next month.